Greetings and welcome to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Monday night. Glad to be representing EOG. The three letters stand for Ion Gaming. EOG.com, a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. Check into the main forum at EOG.com. A lot happening and a lot more on the way as well. We're in a state of transition right now, some personnel changes, but come September 1st, we'll have our house in order, and we'll have a new promotional schedule, many contests, and a new direction at EOG. Should be a lot of fun. I hope you'll be part of the action. This radio show is here to promote the website, and we've got quite a lineup this week. If you don't like our guests this week, you'll probably not like this program, because I think maybe it might be our best week yet. We've got Mike Corrigan to lead it off. I like to call him the Clayton Kershaw of the staff. And how about this five-man rotation? We don't have Dink. That's a downside, but Dink coming back soon. He's vacationing first at Saratoga. Now he's at Del Mar, so Dink takes off a couple of months in the summertime to enjoy the fruits of his labor. But Computer Bob is an able replacement, is he not? He's been here the past couple of weeks, and I love what he brings to the table. He's a math whiz with a little artist in him as well. He gave us a Pac-12 preview last Tuesday night. We'll see what he offers up this Tuesday night. Ed the Stat Man is going to be here every Wednesday in the month of August. He's been good to us as well, not so much with the selections, but the analysis. I like the way Ed looks at the games. He did tell us that the number one is very live in NFL preseason football. That breakdown of key numbers was interesting when he gave us all the key numbers in the National Football League. Of course, 3 and 7 right at the top of the list, 3 being the most common, 7 second most. But how about this? In the NFL preseason, 1 is the third most common margin of victory. And we saw it tonight when Washington defeated Cleveland 24-23 in a classic game that fell 1. Some games fall 1, and it's not that classic preseason scenario, but this was the classic preseason scenario where Cleveland scored late, went for 2 to avoid that overtime session. Of course, in the regular season, they'd kick the extra point, which isn't automatic anymore. It was the first 2 weeks of the NFL preseason which they made the extra point a little bit longer. We'll see if they adopt it moving forward. Probably not this year, but maybe next year. But Ed the Statman, getting back to the margin of victory of 1 in the NFL, he told us that was the third most likely result, the third most likely margin in the NFL preseason, where in the NFL regular season, 1 is the 8th most likely result. Those are numbers dating back to 1994. So Ed's got that database revved up, and he's always giving us interesting numbers. His website is edthestatman.com. You can go to that website to find out more information on his services. Thursday night, I'm excited. We have got Mark Ratner with us. Mark is the former executive director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and he knows all about boxing. And now in his new role with the UFC, he's the vice president of regulatory affairs there. He knows all about mixed martial arts. So we'll be able to talk a full hour with Mark Ratner Thursday night. Don't miss that program, because he knows a little bit about everything. He's been courtside as the UNLV timekeeper. He's been on the football field as a college football official. He was at the 2000 Independence Bowl. He was at the 2003 Aloha Bowl. He refereed the 2006 Cotton Bowl. I know he refereed a game at Notre Dame. So we'll ask him about all of those experiences and more Thursday night. That should be a fun show. And then Friday, we wrap up the week with Eric Strasser, a.k.a. Palm Tree. He'll preview the Saturday baseball card for us. So we're packed, loaded, ready to go. And Mike Corrigan, you lead off the festivities. Mike, good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, J.K. It does look like a good lineup, excluding myself out of that, just in general modesty. But it really is. The Ratner thing would be interesting. That's something different.
It is.
I'm sure he's got some stories.
I'm interested in hearing the differences, similarities and differences between boxing and mixed martial arts. So which do you prefer, Mike?
Well, from a comfort standpoint of being in boxing, I'd never bet on boxing. And I know a lot of people have and so forth. They've just had some very, very strange results over the years. I'm not comfortable with it. Martial arts I'm not as familiar with, although it's become very popular. And, you see an awful lot of that, especially when there's television involved. I think boxing is lacking. Getting back to boxing, it's just lacking star power that they used to have. It wasn't that long ago, John, when in the heavyweights you had Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, and there's always 4 or 5 guys, Kenny Norton and so forth, and then the middleweights with Hagler and Leonard, and they just had better quality of fighters, or at least more interesting types than they do now. And in fact, I can't tell you right now, I swear to you, who the heavyweight champion of the world is in boxing.
Can you
tell me?
Yeah, I guess one of the Klitschko brothers, but there's a lot of versions of it.
That's a Russian guy?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of versions of it, though, too. All the alphabet soup organizations, and you mentioned the glory days of boxing with Ali, Frazier, Norton, Foreman, and all. You know what the difference was then and now is the best guys fight one another. Mike, amazing that this group, but we haven't seen a Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. Back in the day, that would have been made.
They duck each other.
Yeah, and Leonard, Hearns, Hagler, Duran, those 4. I mean, it was
when they went at it like there was no tomorrow.
Like they were forced into round robin, like a round robin tournament.
3 out of 5 or something, and they were very good fights. Marvelous Marvin Hagler. They just had great fights, and Tommy Hearns, and I just liked it so much better. They just don't have the fighters now. I'm not saying the quality. I'm not qualified to talk about quality of boxing, but the people that were involved in the old days or older days were much more interesting. And of course, Arum and Don King are going at it all the time. That was just a continual thing, and then later Tyson jumped in there too, and like you said, George Foreman, and it was just loaded with many guys that were interested in every division too. It wasn't just like one division. The middleweights, the heavyweights, the lightweight, everything was good.
Here's the problem for boxing today, Mike. They're doing a miserable job at telling their story. In fact, they're letting other people tell their story, and that's the one thing you don't want to do in business. I think in life, too, you want to write your own story. You want to tell your tale. You don't want other people to characterize your habits, traits. You want to be able to tell your story. And boxing hasn't told its story very well in the last decade or so. They allowed UFC to sneak in with these shows, reality shows on TV, with the fighter personalities, with the MMA personalities, with social media. I mean, UFC has dominated. I would say in the last 5 years, and maybe stolen some fans from the sport of boxing. Although I still prefer boxing, Mike, over the mixed martial arts.
I do, but they've also they got the gambling involved in the cage. Is it cage fighting, UFC, whatever you call it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever it is they have, you can bet on it.
Sure.
And it seems to be that they've snuck that in there, too. And like you just said, boxing has not promoted itself. It kind of reminds me of horse racing.
Yeah. And those two sports...
They've done such a lousy job of that, too. Mm-hmm. And whatever. And things have gotten very stagnant, and boxing is just, I'm just totally bored with it. And they do go out of their way to duck each other. Mm-hmm. And of course, Mayweather, now he's busy betting $5 million on every sporting event. And I'm lost totally with what if he's really, I guess he does wager on events. I do question the size of the bets.
Yeah.
Only mainly because you'd be held trying to get that kind of money down.
Yeah, hard to know exactly what's going on. Every now and then you'll see a tweet of a Mayweather ticket or Instagram, and Mayweather is it really Mayweather tweeting that out, and are those his tickets? It is tough to know, although he has been seen in various sports books in Nevada, and I would think when he steps to the window, he swings at it pretty good. In the ring, he's a perfect 46-0 with 26 knockouts, and he has money to spare. He is boxing's biggest draw. He goes in the ring again this fall against Marcos Maidana. That's a rematch. And that's not really a fight that anyone called for, but Mayweather has a contract with Showtime, and
they got to fill up the time, and he gets paid good money for it. And he's not by the way, he's not the most popular boxer that ever lived, is he?
No, although a lot of the tradition, they're coming around to him, which I like, because, out of the ring, he has a terrible reputation. In the ring, though, he's known as a master defensive fighter, and, maybe one of the best of all time. And, there's something about that O at the end of the record that's special, too, 46-0. And some people think at his age, mid to late 30s, he might shoot for a retirement of that perfect record. He still has, I think it's 3 fights left on this Showtime contract, which would get him to 49-0, and then we'd see what he would do from there. But the reason I like boxing over MMA, Mike, is it's a sweet science. I like the rules of boxing just a little better than what the MMA offers. The UFC, just too savage for my taste. And if somebody says, well, Kelly, you're on the wrong side of 50 and that's why you don't like the young guys sport UFC, I would say hogwash to that, Mike, because if I were in my early 20s, I wouldn't care for what John McCain described as human cockfighting. I wouldn't go that far. It's just too brutal for me. The fans are a little too bloodthirsty for my taste. I've been to several UFC events, and I really don't care to go back. It's an electric atmosphere inside the arena, but guys beating themselves to a bloody pulp, it seems to me, Mike, we're going backward instead of forward.
Since you've been to a few, you've been in person, which I never have. I've seen them on television, but I never attended one. Does the crowd get really excited over this?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Yeah, the electricity in the air. And back to boxing not telling its story, UFC on the big screen, the night of the fight, they've got fighter interviews before they come into the ring. So if you don't know who these guys are, they give you a quick preview of what's about to happen. It's the presentation's outstanding.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I'm a boxing guy, and even then I was never big in the gambling side of it because they've had some very strange decisions over the years too.
Yeah.
In boxing, and you'd like to, when you make a wager, you'd like to think it's on the level. And I'm not one of these guys that stands out just because I got a wrong score that the game was fixed. And this is what you'll see this with sore losers and whatever. I'm not saying things haven't been over the years. We've had our scandals. College basketball has been a classic, and there's been problems. In boxing's had their problems, and it's just I don't think usually the ones that are complaining are ones that are tearing up tickets, and that's the problem. And speaking of the tickets. Not to promote offshore, even though this is an offshore show, basically, from EOG. Making a bet in Las Vegas of a large nature is going to be expensive for you, even when you win, because you will be sharing those profits with the IRS, and you'll be filling out the forms. Unless you keep a lot of losing tickets off-standard, if you cash a big ticket like Mayweather supposedly does, he will be paying, sizable tax, which you don't have that problem in the offshore. There is a big difference there, John.
Without a doubt. And the paper trail, what bothers me about Las Vegas sportsbooks, the invasion of privacy. I mean, you can't make a big bet anymore anonymously. It's just, it's embarrassing what's happened to the city. Where's the player's card? Are you staying at the hotel? You get the third degree. It's like a SWAT team descends down on you as you're placing a wager. And you get the third degree. Is this your money? A lot of questions. It's unbelievable what happens here and what's happened in the last, especially 5 to 6 years.
Yeah, it is. Your life there is no secrets, and
well, you know what'll happen sometimes, Mike. You say no secrets. Sometimes the ticket writer will holler out to the supervisor approval. Which of course alerts everyone in the sports book that a big bet is being made, and sometimes they go so as far to to tell you the amount. 5 dimes on 364. No thanks.
Yeah, you talk about giving it up. But what's even more embarrassing than that is you go to some joints, and I was talking to our mutual friend Brian Leonard today, and what book was he in? He went in to bet a nickel on a preseason NFL game over the weekend, and it had to be approved. Now that's for a nickel now. Now, I mean, I realize it's preseason and so forth, and the limits are cut down and so forth. I don't know what they are around town, but I don't think I think you could probably get a dime or two down. Especially, it may not be any more than that. I know that Chris has taken 5 dimes on preseason, which they've never been shy about anything. And they take a couple of dimes on the totals in a preseason also. But anyway, Brian went in there, and the guy had to get approval. And then he couldn't find somebody to approve it, so this went on and on and on. After 15 minutes, he walked out and said, "The hell with it. I'll just go find another place." So I honestly, God, I can't remember. I want to say the Stratosphere, but I wouldn't want to say that and be wrong because it's like a bad rap on the place.
They've had plenty of bad raps, the Stratosphere.
Oh, have they? Well, maybe that's the fit.
Yeah, a lot of sportsbook horror stories dealing with the Strat and their other properties, Arizona Charlie's. They would never get arrested for gambling, that's for sure.
Yeah. Maybe maybe it was the Stratosphere, as a matter of fact, and he just got totally disgusted. And I said, well, that's I mean, it's kind of embarrassing. I understand taking smaller play, being on both sides of the counter like I have been. I do take. I understand taking smaller play in the preseason. There's 2 people betting preseason football, either a degenerate or a professional, and that's it. There isn't a lot of common interest in it with the public itself, because when the reserves are in there right away after about the second or third series, and the people lose interest when the regulars don't play. So you're not going to have the interest that you have, during the regular season, and it's hard to, figure out. Now, some coaches, on the other hand, they like to win every game, and some coaches don't care if they win any games. So there's also that factor. And in talking to my friend when I was at Delmore a couple of weeks ago with Carl Peterson, my friend from the Kansas City Chiefs, he told me that depending on who his coach was, because he had a few coaches at Kansas City over 22 years, and that it depends who the coach was, whether they wanted to win or lose it. It didn't really matter too much, and it was more just to see what reserves were going to be able to make the team. And I'll tell you, the one thing that surprised me over this past weekend is the fact that Denver, I think Manning threw 14 passes. Am I correct?
Yes.
And he made 12. I think he converted 12 out of 14, and they went 34-0 in the debut of the new San Francisco Stadium. And there was some money for Denver in the game. I saw as high as 4.5 and went down to 3, which is a pretty good drop. And Denver's playing like it was, the Super Bowl or something. I mean, they just went out there and beat the hell out of San Francisco. And I was just surprised that he was in the game that long. You know, weren't you a little surprised he was in there, I mean, for 14 passes?
Typically, they use week 3 as the dress rehearsal. Maybe Denver's strategy was to crank it up a little bit early, especially given what happened last season in the Super Bowl. You know, you want to get going and right. Probably want to test out Manning's health and his arm strength, too. I thought last season, toward the end of the season, Manning didn't look like himself. Who knows if he'll ever return to the great form that we saw maybe 4 or 5 years ago before those neck surgeries. But
well, he's always going to have a problem in the cold weather, too, outside of a Super Bowl being indoors. But when you get into the cold weather playoffs, even in Denver, his own home field, they get some nasty weather. And if you get back in New England or another places, Pittsburgh or whatever, you're not going to like it. And he never has been a good outdoor player anyway.
Mm-hmm. And in the postseason, he's been a little shoddy, too, in terms of career postseason record. I think he's right around 500. One thing I'm waiting for is the Manning-Brady drop-off, especially vis-a-vis the marketplace, Mike. I always try to catch the guys on the up escalator and then bet against them on the down escalator before anyone else notices. I'm waiting for the drop-off in both Manning and Brady's games and having Rodgers and Breeze pass both. Although Breeze is not a young guy anymore, but Aaron Rodgers to me is the premier quarterback in the league.
He is, and he's young enough to. He's what is he? Upper 28 or something, maybe.
Yeah, right around late 20s, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he sat on the bench waiting for Favre to retire for a while, didn't he?
Yes, he did, which makes me think he's a little bit older than that. Now that you mentioned it.
He could be 3-0 here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to look it up, but I think he could be because he had to sit there and wait for Brett Favre to finally finish up.
I was surprised Tony Romo is 35. I looked that up today. The problem for Romo.
Oh, I didn't know that. He's 35.
35, yeah. It took him a while to latch on. Eastern Illinois product, so he had a cheap pedigree. But once he got to the league, he proved himself probably a better fantasy quarterback than what we see of his results on the field. But with Romo at 35, and here's the problem, Mike, for Tony Romo, 2 back surgeries in the last year.
Yeah, it just hasn't worked out for him. And the team itself is allegedly this year is supposed to be one of the worst teams they've ever had. I don't know if you've heard the same thing, and I haven't scouted out the NFL too much, but on Sports Talk Radio, they're talking about the Dallas Cowboys are just a terrible, terrible team.
I think the NFC East is going to be down because I think Philly romps in that division. I like the Eagles to soar above the Cowboys, Giants, and Redskins. You know, one thing about those quarterbacks in that division, this Nick Foles, he's on the come. I talked about guys on the up escalator. You've got to get Foles now. 27 touchdowns last season against only 2 interceptions, sure. And the 3 other quarterbacks in the NFC East. Romo with the bad back at age 35. Manning coming off an NFL high 27 interceptions. And they turned the ball over constantly last year, whether it was interceptions or fumbles, the Giants. And then RG3's got the bad wheels. He's got the torn ACL, had a great rookie season, but last year was
just a wreckage, and I don't know what kind of condition it is. I assume they've been laying him up because he's a young man.
Yeah, you know what they're doing is they're trying to neuter his willingness, his want to run. They want to put him in the pocket. They don't want him scrambling like he's been doing.
I didn't watch the game tonight. Did he play tonight?
Yes, he did. Griffin 3. He played like the first quarter. RG3 was in, and he looked okay, but they want him in the pocket. The new head coach, new offensive coordinator, if he goes down, Washington's season will be shot for the most part. They're back up. Let's see, was it Kirk Cousins, I think, who came in after RG3, and then Colt McCoy after
I think you're very much right about that division. It is very, very weak. Philly should romp in the division. They really should. Washington's no good. Dallas is terrible. The New York Giants are a little bit of a puzzle. I suppose they still got the other Manning, and they could be somewhat trouble. But like you said, Foles he's the one that replaced Michael Vick, right?
Yes, and it works perfectly in that Chip Kelly-directed offense, too. And, one thing about Foles that I like, 6'6", he's a big boy. And, and he's learning it as he goes. There's more to Foles than what we've seen, and when we saw a lot last year that was good. So
this may be the beginning of, because he's going to be fairly young, mid-20s.
25 is Foles. I looked it up. Aaron Rodgers is 30, Mike.
Okay, it was 30. I didn't mean to slap him around with that number, but
but Manning is 38, and Brady is 30. Peyton Manning is 38, and Tom Brady is 37. So I mean, how much longer can they go at such a high level?
There's any? There has not been an appreciable slack off with either. At least during the regular season. The playoffs have been a little different, but. A little bit, but not much, John.
No, you're right. I'm waiting.
They're pretty damn durable.
They are. And I'll have to check point spread records too, because in terms of legacy value, it's about as high as it can be on Peyton Manning and Tom Brady right now. You would think,
right.
The market respects those two, the name recognition and all. Manning and Brady, and they've been good for a long time. I think what it goes to prove, Mike, is how tough that position is. It's got to be the toughest in all of sports to play because the learning curve is so high, so few guys can do it, and guys who can do it get to stay around until their late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah, but you're right. By far the toughest position, the one with the most responsibility, takes all the heat if there's a bad game. Good game, they're heroes, of course. And the quarterback is, the person. I personally like Tom Brady better than Manning. I just do. I can't explain why. I just do.
Let's step aside.
And of course, the ex-wife and then the current wife, not bad either. So
let's step aside. Take a quick timeout right here. When we return, more with Mike Corrigan. We'll talk about tonight's preseason football game. Washington defeated Cleveland 24-23. Sports radio talk shows will have a field day with what Johnny Manziel did tonight. We'll tell you briefly about Johnny football. It was so Johnny Manziel, what he did near the Washington Redskins sideline. We'll also talk about the quarterback rotations in tonight's game. I mentioned RG3, Kirk Cousins, and Colt McCoy. Tonight for Cleveland, it was Hoyer, Manziel, and then Connor Shaw, who was part of a play that highlighted the randomness of preseason football. Point spread hijinks at its best. We'll tell you about the play when we return here on the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sports books in San Jose, Costa Rica,
go to EOG.com.
And finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
go to EOG.com.
You get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Hi, this is Rick Alec, president of Sports Options. Sports Options is a sports information tool designed to give sports bettors of all types the necessary edge needed to improve their bottom line. With Sports Options, you'll never lay a bad number again. We provide you with live odds from the leading sports books in the world, from Costa Rica to Curacao, London to Las Vegas, and everywhere in between. Sports Options also provides the fastest and most accurate injury information, lightning-quick score updates, and game analysis from 30-year handicapping veteran Mark Simons. We offer affordable services for players of all levels, starting at just $99 per month. To see which service best fits your needs, you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial. No credit card is needed. Just go to www.sportsoptions.com and click on the free trial link. I'm confident you'll be impressed with our product, and you'll find it the most complete and comprehensive on the market. In fact, if you don't like sports options after 30 days, we'll refund you 100% of your subscription costs, no questions asked. Go to sportsoptions.com for all the details, or call 702-835-1743, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to help you. Sports Options, information you can bet on.
And we are back. The EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Monday night. Mike Corrigan, our featured guest, veteran bettor and bookmaker. Mike has so many years of experience, and what an interesting life he has led. So many friends, too, Mike, not only here in Nevada, there in California. Mike has two homes, one here in the Silver State and one in the Golden State. And you're also known in the international sports betting marketplace.
Well, yeah, I've gotten around I am 70 and have gotten around and traveled a bit as far as, not worldwide, but in the key zones, such as Costa Rica, I guess. And Las Vegas. I love Las Vegas. I love Temecula, where I live, and I like to go to Costa Rica for the occasional, at least once a year visit. I don't think I want to live down there full time like some of my friends do, but it's I got a kind of an interesting variety of friends from all walks of life, from sports writers to presidents of football teams to. My friend Bob Bailey was actually the biggest bonus baby ever signed in Major League Baseball back in '61. A tad before you, John. Well, just a tad, whatever. But he was by the Pittsburgh Pirates. He signed a contract for $175,000, which is meal money now. But at the time, it was a huge number. And he signed with the Pirates, and then they dealt him off in about 3 years over to the Dodgers for Maury Wills. It was kind of interesting how that happened, and they gave up on him. Well, I don't think, they kind of gave up on him a little bit, but then he had a 17-year career, so my friend Mr. Bailey is very, very durable. We're going to be having dinner tomorrow night, me and him and Dr. Corrigan, and another interesting gentleman by the name of Larry Flint will be with us also.
You do run in good circles, and in the gambling circles, with your friend Jimmy Vaccaro here in Nevada, the most celebrated bookmaker, I would say, in the past quarter century in Las Vegas. You also know maybe the biggest personality in the offshore sports betting world as well. Mike had dinner, was it earlier this month or late last month, with a guy closely associated with Chris.
Yeah, without mentioning the name, he is definitely associated with Chris, and he's numero uno gentleman, no doubt about that. An interesting career he's had on national television on 60 Minutes and so forth, and he's paid. What do they say when you go to jail and you've paid your time for the crime or something along that line?
Right.
He's had issues like that, but he's turned his life around. He's been a bookmaker forever, but on the other hand, he's gotten to be a very successful bookmaker. And he's turned the Chris outfit, which owns about ungodly amounts of businesses, into just a $1 jillion outfit, and a very, very classy outfit. And he's a little rough around the edges when you're trying to communicate with him, but once you get to know him, he's a good person.
The only downside, they're located in San Jose, Costa Rica. Mike, that office building there in San Jose, it would look great in downtown Chicago or Los Angeles or New York. It's a shame that money is offshore. It should be right here, being taxed and benefiting this country.
Yeah, I talked to Carl Peterson in depth about this. Carl's still working for the commissioner of the NFL, and he's doing some stuff for him still. So, we don't get into it too much on the gambling end of it, but he's very, very aware of why these stadiums are filled up. Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, where I went to see him, and it's like a college environment there. And he said, these people aren't here. They care about what the score of the game is. It isn't so much what that's a competitive game. It depends on the margin of victory. And he says the NFL's very, very aware of that. And if they would just stop opposing the gambling end of it, take a very small piece, and they wouldn't need much. Take a very small piece of the gross wager, have the kind of like pari-mutuel betting, I guess, John, something along that line. Right at the stadium, you could do it there at the stadium, or just legalize it around like OTB offices around the city. All the money would stay in the country, and a lot of people would be gainfully employed. American people would then have jobs, but more importantly, it's just the fact that the money would stay here and stop going offshore and being spent in restaurants in San Jose, Costa Rica.
Yeah, what a boost it would be. And it's the right thing to do on top of it. I'd love to see it at the racetracks. You go to the racetrack, you could make a sports bet. That would help the horse racing industry, too. Now, some horse racing plants, they have casinos inside, but I'd love to see that sports betting option, maybe even at the lottery terminals too. Turn those into kiosks where you can make a sports bet. It would be great. You know what upsets me, Mike, is they embrace these fantasy football guys, and they think guys who gamble at 11 to 10 on the outcome of the game are goofy or illegal or unlawful. They don't want to be associated with the gamblers, but yet the fantasy football guys, it's okay. They cater to them in terms of...
act like that's okay. And I watched a segment on 60 Minutes last night about the stock market. I don't know. I'm sure you probably didn't see it, but I mean, just what the crooked things that go on with the stock market.
I saw it. Yeah, the fraction of a second, the edge that some companies have over others.
Yeah, the split-second edge. It kind of reminds me of that little delay that we have in our office when the point spread moves a half a point. Here comes Billy Walters in and for about 10 to 20 times. I mean, it's like a split-second thing. I'm glad you saw the program, John. I didn't know you watched it.
Yeah, I did. Fascinating. And although I've never been really into the stock market, I love the betting marketplace. But there are so many common threads run through the stock market and the betting marketplace. When we chat with John Netto, he sometimes highlights those. I'll ask Computer Bob on tomorrow night's program what he knows about the stock market. And I chuckle because there are some great minds who are trying to gamble and win at sports, and this is really peanuts compared to what they could do at the New York Stock Exchange if they want to gamble for millions.
We're talking millions. Mm-hmm. I mean, way more millions. We're talking about just a ton of money that's exchanged every day. And I'm with you on that. I lost. I went and invested 10 dimes on the stock market one time. The only reason I did it is because there was this young lady that was a stockbroker, and it was kind of like it was my entrance fee to try and get involved with her. It cost me 10 dimes. but I did lose my money, and the stock went upside down. And that's the only. So I lose the 10 dimes, and I never went back. And I don't really like anything. I do worry about the insider trading thing. I mean, it does bother me that people know things before the public does.
If you're not on the inside, you're on the outside. Exactly,
and if you get on the inside, and if you get on the wrong end of the inside, you could be at the Crossbar Hotel, doing about a 5 to 10 stint.
A lot to get to on tonight's program. Just about 15 minutes remaining in the show. We'll get to selections. We'll see if Mike has a winner for us. Tomorrow's Major League Baseball action. I do have one play that I like. I'll also be previewing the WNBA playoffs this week. In fact, my Tuesday blog that'll appear sometime early Tuesday morning will feature the WNBA. I love that league. I've followed it for years. We have some EOG contributors with a few points to make as well. Woodrow Wilson listens to the show religiously. He said that something doesn't get enough attention on the radio, and it's something that Railbird wrote about at EOG.com. Let me read you his contribution in full, Mike, and I haven't prepped Mike for this topic, but Railbird writes, when someone isn't fully invested in sports betting, I don't respect their opinion. That's what Birdie says. He says, I know what it takes to win. It's hard to have a social life and win. It's hard to be a video poker player and win. It's hard to be a wrestling promoter and win at sports. I think that was a shot at Dink. Or it's hard to be a poker player and win at sports. So, Railbird says you've got to be focused. You've got to be fully invested. That was his term. I like to say that if, show me a part-time gambler and I'll show you a full-time loser. You do have to work 40, 50, 60 hours if you're going to try to win at sports.
It's a full-time job. 100% it is. And even then, it may not work out. On the other hand, if you do your work and do your 40, 50 hours, as you mentioned, you got a reasonable chance. Stay on top of things. It doesn't hurt to have some connected information here and there about stuff. Let's call it sources, whatever. And Doug Corrigan doesn't mind me telling this. When he was a beat writer for the Lakers, and I was betting on the NBA. He would call me and tell me every time Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would have migraines. And he would be leaving the hotel, and it would be maybe 30 to 60 minutes later, they would get this change with the sports books, and the point spread would move 3 or 4 points because he was that big to the number that Jabbar was. But meanwhile, I could sneak in my little 5 or 10 dime play, and whatever. So it doesn't hurt to have sources either. Beat writers are really good, the ones that follow the teams.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they have some knowledge of gambling at the same time.
I think I love late-breaking information. I think that, in the last hour of wagering, if you get something that nobody else has, and that's why, Mike, you have to respect the moves in the last hour, especially, you're not sure why it's moving, but it's moving for a reason, and usually a pretty good reason. I like those sudden late moves that tip off, oftentimes lineup changes, or key injuries, a player missing or a player at it. I think that's where there are still some edges in the betting marketplace if you can find them. It's not easy, but they're out there.
No, it isn't easy, and of course, what's real hard is getting the number of the sports books, whether they be in Nevada or out of the country, or so on top of things now. It's hard to beat them to the punch too. Again, getting a good number, you almost got to catch a guy that's not on the screen, and see if he's a little asleep at the switch, so you can beat him for a half a point or a point. Because some of them are a little lazy too. And I also know some that book with an opinion. Now, of course, that's the greatest thing. You find a bookmaker with an opinion, and you can really do some damage there. Now, it's not that you don't respect the guy that has the opinion, but other than maybe Bob Martin, I'm not sure anybody qualifies to have one. And they don't. One of the greatest things in the world is to find a guy that books with an opinion, or he'll keep that number the same. I'm very familiar with an outfit down in Costa Rica that on a Sunday, they won't move the numbers. Now, they will move it if it's like if a game is a -6 and it goes to 7 everywhere, they will at least move it to 6.5. But the guy that owns the place is very, very stubborn, and he'll hold that number till doomsday. Especially in the dead number area, it's never going to move into that 5.5 area. But the threes are a little tricky. That's a little different story there.
We saw something similar in the early 90s here in Las Vegas, Mike, with the old Sport of Kings. They were gambling with an opinion. The only problem for the Sport of Kings is the players had more money than the house. I mean, it was a case where they were short on funds, and pretty soon their doors were closed.
Was that Convention Center Drive next to Ciro's?
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Italian restaurant's still there.
Piero's.
I mean, yeah, what I say, Ciro's. Piero's. And they were right on the corner there, and they had set odds, right?
Yeah, fixed odds on horse racing.
Fixed odds, that's what I meant.
And they had Jack Lysette behind the counter for the
Jack had been around.
Yeah, but they were gambling, and while everybody else was 7 on a Monday night football game, I remember, I think they stayed at 7.5 or 8. And like you said, you don't have to be at 8. At 7.5, you'll get all you can eat if you want it. If there's, if syndicates are betting you, they had opinions and they went belly up.
Yeah. When I went to Kansas City to see my friend Carl Peterson, he introduced me to Lenny Dawson. And now, do you remember Lenny Dawson?
Sure.
Right? Yeah, even you're not that old. And there was a year, I'm sure we've talked about this before, I believe the bookmakers of Nevada back then, because it was way before the offshore, they took, I think it was 10 Kansas City Chief games off the board that year because of some rumors about Lenny Dawson. Mm-hmm. Now, nothing was ever proven, and nothing came of it, but they were just really, really leery. Their information was that he might be doing some business, and it never got proved out, and I have no idea. I'd like to think nothing that was going on there at all. Of course, they didn't make the money the players make. Although Lenny Dawson was kind of a star player, and that's when wasn't Hank Stram the coach then?
Yes, Hank Stram and Len Dawson. Yeah, and I remember those the whispers about Len Dawson, and we've seen similar stories, Mike. I know with college football, some of the bookmakers here in Nevada, before they really got shy, and they would take some bets. They were hesitant to book Mid-American Conference games. There were some MAC games that weren't always offered in a timely manner. Some guys wouldn't take any action on the games. Others waited till very late in the week to post numbers. They thought there was some manipulation in the marketplace on MAC games. And I also remember, I think it was Temple was not competitive one year, and so I want to say Jimmy V stopped booking Temple at the Mirage. I faintly remember that. But Hawaii football, there have been some whispers about Hawaii football, and some weird results there.
Right. Of course, Hawaii's always been a big play situation because it's always a late game on Saturday night.
Sure.
And any game that starts at 9 o'clock, and if depending on how your day's going, is going to probably get a lot of play. And Hawaii starting so late they'd run till midnight. And you were wrapping up the Stardust show when the Hawaii was in the middle of the fourth quarter.
That's right. That's right.
I don't remember the Kansas City Chief thing. Carl, he won't talk about it, publicly so much, but we had a conversation about some of the old NFL owners too, starting with with the most famous one being Carol Rosenblum. But a lot of the owners, and I won't get into all the names. It's well known, a few of them anyway. Rosenblum, Rooney in Pittsburgh. I don't know about Art Modell in Cleveland. He just looked like a gangster when he had that top coat on, and that they did some wagering. Mm-hmm. And they didn't make that kind of money back then, and they had to make it some way or another. That there was a lot of gambling going on for sizable plays, and they had plenty of outs around the country because the mob was running the country at the time, and they had Nevada too. But it was really the bets were being made through the Italian sources, let's call it.
He's Mike Corrigan. I'm John Kelly. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. We still have one commercial break we want to duck in, just a 60-second break, and then we'll get to best bets. But about that football game tonight, very quickly, Washington defeated Cleveland 24-23. I mentioned the margin of victory earlier in the show. This game lands one in the classic preseason sense, with Cleveland scoring a late touchdown, then going for two and going for the win. They would never do that in the regular season. That's why one is so live in the preseason. But what happened on the final play of the game, it determined both the side and the total in this game. Connor Shaw, third-string quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, the last play of the game, they're at the 45-yard line. They're at, Washington's 45-yard line. He rolls left, throws the Hail Mary, gets it to the goal line. The ball is tipped into the waiting hands of scrub wide receiver Emmanuel Ogbuchi, played at Georgia State of all places. He wants to be a pharmacist, I read on the internet. This guy will not be playing in the NFL regular season, but he was on the field because rosters right now are at 90. They're going to have to cut down to 53 on opening day, but 90 players on an NFL preseason sideline. They'll get down to 75 a week from tomorrow, and then 53 a week from Saturday, August 30th. But right now, so many times, scrubs in the fourth quarter decide the point spread fate, and this game lands 24-23. The Redskins a winner over the Browns. The game closed 2-42. In fact, it was sitting at 24-17 late in the fourth quarter. Before that final play, it was 24-17. Total opened 40.5 and closed 42. So it looked like it was going to land in the middle at 41, but then Connor Shaw with that Hail Mary connection. Let's step aside, take the final time out of the program. When we return, a quick check of tomorrow's Major League Baseball action. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sportsbooks in San Jose, Costa Rica,
Go to EOG.com.
and finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
Go to EOG.com.
you get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Time now for the JK Play of the Day. This is John Kelly's single strongest recommendation against the current numbers at the M Resort here in Las Vegas.
Interleague baseball action tomorrow. In fact, I like the schedule tomorrow. It's symmetry at its finest. 5 games in the National League, 5 in the American, and 5 in interleague play. The game I like best, 977, 978. I'll take Kansas City and Colorado under the total. Go under the total of 9. Well, you know what? 10 at Chris right now. Let's go under the total of 10. Matzik and Shields. Shields, a big game pitcher. We know that. The Royals are on a roll. Shields tough in interleague play, 3-0 in 5 contests against the National League. What I like best about the Royals is they get in that bullpen. Herrera in the 7th, Davis in the 8th, and Holland in the 9th. I'll go under the total of 10 at Coors Field tomorrow between the Rockies and the Royals. Mike Corrigan, do you have a best bet for us?
I like that play you made, actually, and 2 major players out for Colorado.
Oh, I forgot to mention it. Yes, Cargo and
the rest of the year, the left fielder and the shortstop.
You know, not so much Cargo because he's had a down season, but Tulowitzki.
Right, but he's still, you know, he's a left-handed hitter, and he could be a problem for Shields.
Sure.
And they got, you know, the ballpark, of course, is spooky. I watched a doubleheader there with Cincinnati yesterday. I was just astounded with what was going on there. Anyway, I'm going to Yankee Stadium for, speaking of left-handers. There's a pair of I guess I don't know if the kid for Houston's not a journeyman. He's a kid. Capuano's been around. I like this game under. I see 8.5. John, is that what you got on the Yankee game?
8.5. Yes.
Yeah, I'm under 8.5. This is a left-handed hitter's ballpark. 2 left-handed pitchers, although they're not going to remind you of any. This is not Warren Spahn's pitching. So, but they should. Neither team has. The Yankees don't hit a lot. They should. They don't. And Houston doesn't hit much anyway. The ballpark is built for left-handers. I like under 8.5 there. And I just want to point out that John Kelly once again came up with this kid for the Chicago Cubs today. Hendricks, is that how you say it?
Kyle Hendricks, yes.
I mean, you come up with this about a month ago, or not, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and The guy hasn't lost a game yet, I don't think.
He's lost one, but I believe. But he was a star at Dartmouth, Ivy Leaguer, who reminds me a lot of the Hall of Famer, the recent Hall of Famer, Greg Maddux. He's a pitcher and not a thrower, and that's what Maddux was, but he's a great game manager. Look forward to watching his career in the future. I've got a good note, too, on NFL preseason football that I'll save for tomorrow when Computer Bob joins us. Mike Corrigan, as always, a pleasure. We'll chat with you down the road.
Okay.
Mike Corrigan on the program. Our conversation continues at EOG.com, where there's many changes happening at the website. I think those changes that you'll like. Check it out. Check out the main forum there.